Well, thank you all for being here, for joining us to talk about this amazing civic engagement opportunity offered by the U.S. Asia Institute and the Mongolian Embassy in Washington, D.C. My name is Isaac Hart, and I am the resident director of the American Center for Mongolian Studies here in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. ACMS is hosting this webinar because this is exactly the kind of engagement and cultural exchange between the United States and Mongolia that it is our mission to support. So before we begin, I just want to take a second to talk about what the American Center for Mongolian Studies is and what we do. ACMS is a nonprofit academic organization based here in Mongolia. Our mission, broadly defined, is to encourage and support cultural and academic exchange between Mongolia and the United States. We have three principal programs by which we accomplish this mission. First, we have a Mongolian language program, which offers instruction at every level for Mongolian language. Our instructor here offers group classes, Zoom one-on-one sessions, one-on-one in-person classes, including a number of participants via Zoom in the United States every week. And finally, we have a really cool 2-month-long intensive summer language program. It's a very popular program. In June and July every year, you come here and basically you're immersed in Mongolian culture and language all summer long. It's a very popular program and always has really good reviews. Another program we offer is a variety of summer field schools. This year, we're kicking off our summer field school offerings with a faculty development seminar called Climate Change and Public Health in Mongolia. What does climate change mean for the people of Mongolia? This course is, it's a really cool offering by the Council of American Overseas Research Centers, korc.org. It's a totally free course, including airfare, lodging, food, everything, including instruction for faculty of United States community colleges and minority serving institutions. Details for that program, again, are on korc.org. This year, we have 3 additional field courses lined up. The first is a topical archaeology course on the history of horses in Mongolian culture, taught by archaeozoologist William Taylor, archaeologist and former National Museum archaeologist Bayer Sakhan Jamsranjav, who's now a postdoc at the Max Planck Institute of Geoanthropology in Germany, and myself. The second course we'll offer is a course on National Park and animal management with a focus on biodiversity, taught at Hustai National Park, which is the home of the last herds, one of the last herds of Przewalski's horse, the last truly wild horse species in Eurasia. That course will be taught by Tsarma Nyamdala, a lecturer here at the National University of Mongolia, and 6 conservation scientists based at Hustai National Park. The third field school we'll offer this year is a course on ethnography of Mongolian herders in the steppe, taught by University of Oxford professor Ariel Ahern and Oxford PhD candidate Munkerden Gantugla, focusing on mobile pastoralism, cosmology, and economic development in the Mongolian steppes. Finally, our third big program we offer at ACMS is a variety of field and library research fellowships for American scholars wishing to do work in Mongolia. These are typically $4,000 fellowships to support a wide range of projects in any field, including humanities, sciences, and social sciences, as well as library projects in any area that addresses enhancing collection content, resource accessibility, and training in Mongolia. So that's what ACMS is and what we do. And I will now pass the gavel on to Keely Thompson of the U.S. Asia Institute, who will introduce the MUNCEP program and today's panelists. Keely, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I want to thank Isaac and everyone at ACMS for partnering with us and helping to get the word out about this program. As he mentioned, I'm Keely. I'm the Communications and Special Projects Manager at the U.S. Asia Institute. So USAI is a nonpartisan, non-advocacy NGO dedicated to fostering awareness and understanding between the peoples and governments of the U.S. and Asia. We work with 15 Asian countries and have strong relationships with their embassies: Brunei, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Laos, Malaysia, Mongolia, Myanmar, the PRC, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. So in addition to things like our congressional briefing series, formal receptions, and webinars, USAI is also known for our signature summer youth development programs, one of which is the reason we are all here today. The Mongolian U.S. National Civic Engagement Program, or MUNCEP, is a 9-week professional development program created by USAI in coordination with the Mongolian Embassy in Washington, D.C. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience for young adults of Mongolian descent who are U.S. citizens, U.S. permanent residents, or F-1 visa holders to gain a firsthand look at the American government and political system in Washington, D.C. After being accepted to the program, participants are placed in an internship here in DC at places like congressional offices, the White House, the US-China Business Council, East-West Center, and more. So we do have 2 wonderful MUNCEP alumni here with us to tell us all about their experience in the program, and I'll have them introduce themselves. But as for the format of today's webinar, I will first ask our panelists a few questions, and if there are any questions in the audience, we can then open it up then. So with that, Temujin, would you be so kind as to start us off by telling us about yourself?
Of course, thank you so much, and thank you to the ACMS and USAI for putting this together, because MUNCEP is really a great program, and I'm glad to be a part of this. As Keely said, my name is Temujin Choijilsuren. I was born and raised here in the United States. I'm currently a senior at Virginia Tech, where I study political science and expected to graduate in this upcoming May. And I also have a concentration in national security, and I'm just interested in like the politics, public service career field, and like policy areas such as the Indo-Pacific foreign policy and the strategic framework, education policy, immigration policy, and such. But upon graduation, I do plan to work on Capitol Hill, which is also where I interned this past summer with a congressman from Virginia, and hopefully I get to spend a few years there, or maybe spend my entire lifetime there. We'll see. But I'm just making my way through. So thank you.
Well, hi everyone. No. Hi everyone. My name is Danzan. I was a part of the MUNCEP Fellowship Program. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Maryland. I study government and politics, international relations. I'm currently serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Democratic staff. We are one of 2 committees in the United States Congress that have jurisdiction and oversight on foreign policy matters. And yeah, like Temujin, I'm currently exploring career opportunities on the Hill. I look forward to my time here, though it is coming to an end relatively soon. I hope to stay on the Hill, work in a foreign policy portfolio, and if not, I'd like to work for the State Department as a foreign service officer.
Thank you both. So building off of that, would you guys be able to talk about when you participated in MUNCEP? Where were you in your school, your career, your life? How did you find out about the program, and what interested you about it?
All right. Yeah, so I participated in MUNCEP in this 2022, which was the year that the program was taking place. And as for where I was in schooling, I was a sophomore in college at the time. And it was like the first year where COVID restrictions were starting to be lifted. So it was really a year of adjustment, adaptation, because my first year at college, everything was just shut down. Everything was on Zoom, didn't really go out. So I was pretty much like trying to get used to what we used to consider normal before the pandemic. So it was a great year of adaptation because of the pandemic. But as for how I found out the program, I actually saw a posting of it on Facebook from the Mongolian Embassy in DC, but I didn't really think much of it. I saw it, I scrolled through it, didn't really bother reading through it, but luckily my dad, he did read into it, and he sent it to me saying that I would be a great fit for the program. It's something that's really tailored to what I want to pursue after college. So I decided to look into it some more, and I agreed with him, obviously, because it is like what I was looking for. I was getting ready to look for internships, apply, get my foot in the door somehow. So yeah, my dad, luckily, he decided to take the time to read through the post, send it to me, and I put in my application, went through the interviewing process, got placed, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I had pretty much the same pathway into USAI as Temujin. I joined the MUNCEP Fellowship Program in the summer of 2022. I was a part of the inaugural cohort with him, actually, so it's great seeing you again. I actually heard about this program similarly through family. I was in the process of looking for internships as well. I knew I always wanted to work in the public service field, and coincidentally, there was a program tailored to, the Mongolian American community, and I thought that was amazing. So I similarly, like Temujin, had a family member flag it for me, went through the whole process of reading it, applied, and luckily I managed to get an interview. And yeah, the rest is history. I interned in the fall, though, for U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. So I didn't intern in the summer, but yeah, here I am.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing. Well, I mentioned briefly what MUNCEP is, kind of factually, but since you two actually participated, would you mind expanding more about your personal experiences, about the orientation week, where you did your internship, that sort of thing?
Definitely, yeah. So once the program started, it did kick off with a 1-week orientation session where USAI brought in speakers, guests, just professionals throughout DC, and that orientation week was really useful because it was very informative and just allowed us to quickly adapt to the busy scene that is Washington, D.C. There's just so much going on at the same time. So it's just really easy to get lost in all of that. But luckily, that orientation week really helped us get set in stone, know what to expect, help us determine what we want to get out of it. And going on, so I was matched with the former Members of Congress Association, which is also known as FMC. It's a nonprofit organization that works with former and current members of Congress by connecting them with business leaders and diplomats throughout the world. And that work is primarily done through its congressional study groups. And FMC has 4 groups that focuses on, as the Congressional Study Group on Europe, Germany, South Korea, and Japan. And my time there, I primarily worked under the Congressional Study Group on Korea. And, the work that I was assigned to do as an intern there, I helped organize just various meetings for members of Congress and diplomats from the South Korean embassy, which was pretty crucial at the time because they had just recently put in a new ambassador at the post, Cho Tae-young, who's now the National Security Director of South Korea. So we organized about 3 meetings, breakfast discussion, roundtables, such things like that. And I helped set up with the logistics, make sure the name cards were spelled correctly, ushered in the guests. And during the meeting, I took pretty extensive notes. It was also my first actual work, taking notes and everything. So I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing. So I was just trying to write everything word for word. And then later on, when the meeting was done, we were back in the office later in the day, they had me write a memo just to summarize what the meeting was about so they could put that in their newsletter. And also, besides from the meetings that we put together for them, I also played a pretty major role in preparing the congressional delegation and former member delegation trip to South Korea that took place in that July. So I was busy preparing briefing binders, creating their daily itineraries, and researching policies that are important to the U.S.-South Korean relations, such as foreign direct investments and the new manufacturing plants from the big vehicle companies like Hyundai, Indo-Pacific strategies, Chips and Science Act. That was a very big deal in that time. And another thing that I was also really excited about, and it's probably one of the things I'll really hold near and dear to my heart, was that I was given the opportunity to actually write a speech for former Congresswoman Barbara Comstock from Virginia. for their meeting with the South Korean National Assembly's Committee on Foreign Affairs, Trade and Unification. So that's just like one of those like things like that really makes you excited as an intern. Like you're able to see like actual results of the work you put in. People say like that's like interns don't really do much, but the people who really do care, especially FMC, they really want you to succeed. They want you to gain the necessary skills to succeed in the workforce, and they just want you to meet so many new people, expand your network. So my time there was very, very beneficial. It was, I would say, successful as well. It just opened the door to so many more opportunities after that. So that's my time there in a nutshell. I'll pass it off to Dan.
Yeah, it was fantastic to say the least. That this was a really it was a lot to learn within that 1 week alone. Like Temujin, I did a previous internship, but I didn't feel that was enough to really prepare me for what I'm doing today. Within that 1 week alone, I was surrounded by a lot of professionals in the field, experts, longtime staff, people in my field at least that worked for so long. It was a really grueling but really helpful orientation week. And yeah, I'd say I was really fortunate because that's all what set me up for my fall internship. Getting to hear from different staffers about the do's and don'ts. How do you really reach out and network with others? How do you figure out new career paths? How do you get to the next point from where you are today? How do you sort of expand on any skills you want to improve? And it's all really informative. I'd say it was also really fantastic because I was surrounded by so many like-minded people, Mongolians with a strong sense of public service and just a general interest in supporting their communities. I found myself really fitting in, and yeah, then I found a really good group of people.
Thanks. And I know you said you interned in the fall, but would you be able to talk about your internship in the fall?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. It was a really good experience getting to actually have direct public policy experience. I spent significant time working with constituents, working with staff members to see how a bill starts from the beginning and how it moves its way through committee, how it goes through the process of debate and deliberation between different committees and different members. I really got to help different people interact with different people in the state of Nevada. That was all really informative, getting to see their different opinions, getting to see how our members of Congress directly take these constituent opinions and reflect it and use it towards their policy and in their decision making. It's all right in front of you. A lot of grueling writing assignments, lots of grueling writing assignments, writing everything from letters, memos, responses to constituents, everything from thank you letters, everything from everything from a tracker, appropriations tracker, amendments tracker, helping set up and coordinate meetings between constituents and your member. A lot of logistical work, as Temujin mentioned before. It's pretty much what you expect in a lot of internships. But yeah, lots of logistical work, setting up meeting rooms, giving tours to constituents, helping resupply staff, being on phones and actually engaging with the people that that support you. So yeah, a lot of logistical work, a lot of great writing experience, and I'm certainly grateful for the MUNCEP program for setting all that up for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Danzan, you mentioned that something about being around like-minded individuals, the Mongolian American community. So quickly, I just wanted to ask you to, part of MUNCEP's, the reason we do this is to increase Mongolian American representation in things like civic engagement, the political system, the US government, and perhaps even preparing these future leaders to, take over U.S.-Mongolia relations in the coming years. So I don't know if either of you had any thoughts about what it was like in MUNCEP to be surrounded in this atmosphere. Like, was that helpful for you at all, professionally or personally?
Yeah, being surrounded by, like Dan said, like-minded people, and also like other Mongolian American peers with similar aspirations and beliefs, it just really, how do I say, it just made me feel a lot more comfortable. Just being in the program, adapting to the settings and atmosphere. It just really helped me succeed because I knew that I was around people I could trust, people I could just easily talk to, and now we're all friends. Even with the other cohorts from that year, we're still connected with each other. We'll chat with each other every now and then, try to meet with each other, those who are in the DC area still. But I don't know how to put it into words, but just like the representation really does matter, because it just makes it so much easier to like get your foot in the door, get to where you want to be, just learning more about yourself and what you really want to check off the list. I don't know how to put it into words, but yeah.
Yeah, man, same with Temujin. It didn't only help my professional growth, but it allowed me to build lifelong relationships, not only with, of course, with people in my cohort and in both Impact and TANP, but also the US Asia Institute. A lot of people that I still get coffees with, dinners with. So yeah, my biggest takeaway is it really exposes you to a lot of people who also have the same goals, who have same interests, right? That public service to them is really important, that have such a strong connection to Mongolia, to U.S.-Mongolia relations, who are so invested in U.S.-Mongolia relations. So my biggest takeaway is getting to meet such like-minded people has been a truly beautiful moment, and yeah, I'm eternally grateful for this experience. A year and a half later, it's been an incredibly important part of my professional growth. I'm still, as you know, in touch with Temujin and a bunch of people from my program alone. So yeah, and I'm doing this conversation today. So as you can see, I'm still very in touch with the US Asia Institute, and yeah.
Thank you. Well, Danzan just shared his biggest takeaway. I don't know, Temujin, if you had any last takeaways, or a year and a half later, if MUNCEP has influenced your life in any way. If that's repetitive, don't worry about it, but just wanted to check in.
Totally fine. Yeah. And I do have some pretty big takeaways that I did gain from MUNCEP in my time there. Just really like, and these are values that I still stick to and just really live by. So just like, I learned that, while it's beneficial to be curious and explore new fields, you just really have to know what you are looking for, what you want, what are you trying to gain out of, what are you trying to achieve, and just also like saying yes to any opportunity or assignments, intern assignments that comes your way, because it will go a long way. It'll reflect your character and your work ethic, and that you're driven and determined. And just like a few other things that'll definitely help other future applicants for MUNCEP and future participants is, just someone knows someone in DC, but if they don't know someone directly, then they know someone who knows someone. That's something I've really like learned. And it was pretty shocking to me. Like, even though I live 30 minutes away from DC, it's just such a big shocker. It's like a little cultural differences from like just like the regular suburbs of the DC area, and then being there itself. And also I've learned that like business cards are a pretty big deal. So, luckily I was able to like quickly make a little design, print out a few, and then just like getting coffee with people, like Dan said, connecting with new people. I also learned how to write cold emails to people I want to connect with, which is also a pretty important skill, because that's just how you meet people. You just gotta really shoot your shot, and they'll most definitely reply to you. And people always want to meet new people, so And everyone's there to also like help out each other, make sure everyone else succeeds. And a year and a half later, MUNCEP has definitely helped me get to where I am now. Like the connections that I mentioned. And it also really did pave the way for me to get the internship I had this past summer on Capitol Hill. And now because of that internship, I know what I'm going to do after I graduate. I know what my career plan is for the near future. And it's just, it was really, really beneficial. It's such a great program. There's just so many things to say, all good things. I really do. I am glad to see that MUNCEP is going into its third year now, and hopefully fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. And will always be there to assist those coming in soon.
Yay, thank you so much for both of that. Yeah, I was just gonna ask now, if anyone had questions. I see Paula has put some in. So what do both of you think are the most important issues for US-Mongolian relations, if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So most important issues. The first thing that really comes to mind is I know that it was just a few days ago, actually. The Mongolia Third Neighbor Trade Act was recently reintroduced into the House and Senate. And that's like a pretty big deal relating to the US-Mongolian relations because it's going to allow Mongolian cashmere products to enter the US market duty-free, I believe. I don't know the specific details of that part, but it's just meant to bolster the trade relationship between the two countries, bolster and help support the Mongolian cashmere industry, especially considering that it's sandwiched between two very big countries, very powerful countries. So it's just really important to the third neighbor diplomatic relations between the two. And another important issue, not sure if I would say it's an issue, but it was something that was resolved over the summer when the Mongolian Prime Minister visited Washington, D.C. and met with members of the president's cabinet and Vice President Harris. They signed the Open Skies Agreement, which allows for direct flights between the two countries, which is a very big step forward towards building off and strengthening this relationship because, it allows for easier access between the two. It also helps like people like me, like Dan, our families to like not having to make constant layovers here and there throughout the world. It's just easy, just one flight in and you're good to go. So those are the things that really come to mind right now. And I also, another thing that just came up to mind is just like really like strengthening democracy and freedom, especially Mongolia, because it's in terms of democracy and freedom, it's a young nation. Yes, it has like thousands of years of history, but when it comes to like the democratic aspect and the freedom that Mongolian people live in now, it is really important to ensure that we preserve that democracy, maintain it, and make sure it holds for the generations to come, especially considering its two neighbors. So it's really important for the United States to be there for Mongolia to just preserve that important aspect.
Yeah, to add further, if anything, to what Temujin mentioned, Mongolia is a very young democracy. It's only existed for now 40 years, 30 or so, 40 years. It's incredibly important for a young democracy to continue maintaining its democratic institutions, and a lot of it is trial and error. It's going to continue to grow as a democracy. And mentioning more about the recent Mongolia Third Neighbor Trade Act. Sorry, I just butchered the name, but yeah, as Temujin mentioned, it was recently introduced in both the House and the Senate. It's an addition to how U.S.-Mongolia relations have really grown for the past 30 years. There's this expansion of trade between both countries already, but there's an idea where both can now, in addition to the West, find avenues for fields like telecom, find opportunities in areas like in coal and other natural resources. It's just if anything, it's to show that there is a significant relationship between the two countries. There is recognition on behalf of the United States that there is There is an opportunity for trade. There's an opportunity for closer economic ties. But yeah, maintaining, I think, to answer your question, it's really important for the United States to understand that Mongolia maintains a strong relationship, or at least a strong trading relationship with its neighbors to the north and south. It's been like that for years, but it ideologically leans closer to the west, or at least it's starting to lean closer to the west within the last 30 years. And it's important that going forward, it needs to navigate that balance. It needs to respect that balance if it wants to, if anything, maintain strong U.S.-Mongolia relations. It's to not step on any toes while also recognizing that Mongolia is vital to U.S. Security interests, to trade interests, to regional cultural interests. So, yeah.
Thank you both for those wonderful insights. I just want to check in to see if anyone else has any questions for Dan or Temujin before we wrap up. But I'll let you call it.
Sorry, can both of you just go over again, Temujin and Dan, specifically, what is the nature of your internships? So like, who are you interning with, and what exactly was the role? So like, I maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear like, were you with a congressman, or like, who was the individual or entity that you were interning with?
Yeah, so when I was in MUNCEP, I interned for a nonprofit organization, former members of Congress Association. So like I said earlier, the nonprofit is dedicated to connecting, making programming for former members of Congress to meet with, international leaders, business leaders, see how the United States can build on those relationships and start new relationships. And also does have programming for current members of Congress through setting up meetings with diplomats, business leaders, international leaders, just all of their stakeholders involved towards bolstering the many relationships that the United States have with other countries. So that's primarily the work I did, just like setting up those meetings, a lot of logistical planning work, policy research to prepare briefing materials for the individuals involved with the meeting itself. So not much like policy work, but more so like logistics, event planning. But there's like a little dash of like policy research involved.
Yeah, I was on the Senate side. I was with U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto. While there was a chunk of my tasks focusing on operations, I was a legislative intern, and I was mostly focusing on assisting the member with drafting legislation, researching bills, helping them, if anything, with meeting with constituents so they can find ideas or find legislation they could start, understanding the issues that most affect Nevadans, and using that information towards policy goals that benefit the state. Yeah.
I'll pop in and say these are great examples of the internships that our fellows get to go on. So a good chunk of them do end up going to various congressional offices. We've had obviously what Dan just mentioned, where he worked with, but also Tammy Duckworth, James Moylan, etc. Lots of different reps are willing to take our interns, and then also other organizations. So former members of Congress, we have the U.S. ASEAN Business Council, U.S. China Business Council, East-West Center, and then also on the government side, White House Initiative on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islanders. So yeah, there's a big range of things that we get for our participants. I do see one other question from Monica. Is there more you would like to see in terms of Mongolian American representation in government and society moving forward? If either of you have thoughts on that.
Yes, I will always be an advocate for more representation because I believe that, when everyone is at the table, when everyone has a voice and all the opinions are represented, I believe that does um, lead towards, policy that works for everyone and that, no one's left behind. It's just overall like it just works out for everyone. So yes, I would love to see more representation. I do believe it's growing as the days go by because the Mongolian American community is relatively young compared to its other similar communities like the Korean American community, Indian American, Chinese American communities. Compared to those demographics, it is a really young community. So, we're still in like the building blocks, we're in the beginning stages, but it has grown significantly in the past few years. We now have outside of the government field, but like we have many like Mongolian family doctors, Mongolian lawyers, Mongolian immigration lawyers, just like, we're all over the field now. So representation definitely is increasing pretty rapidly as well. When it comes to representation in government and society moving forward, it's still, like I said, very minimal, but it's growing. And that's also what MUNCEP is for, is to feed into that expansion of representation. We have, including Dan, about like 2 or 3 other Mongolian staffers on the Hill. Actually, one of the other MUNCEP participants from our cohort he's not on the Hill, he's in a district office, but he is, involved with constituent work that's coming out of Washington, D.C. and the Capitol Hill. There's also another staffer in the House Democratic Caucus. So, while it is there and the foundation is like being built as we talk, but I do believe it is going to expand and increase pretty rapidly in the coming years. So I think we're on a pretty good track right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see more Mongolian American representation in government, of course. And as Temujin mentioned, we are still a relatively young community, and we are even a minority within the Asian American community itself. But of course, it's important to always increase representation for your members of Congress, or in general. As you know, Northern Virginia, in Temujin's area, there's a there's a huge Mongolian American community in areas like California, with San Francisco, with Los Angeles, with New York. And this is, we, even though we are still a minority, even within another minority group, um, yeah, I would certainly love to advocate for, I would certainly advocate for more Mongolian American awareness, Mongolian representation in major cities. I think there's a lot of opportunity to really learn about the Mongolian community through engagement like educational programs, or just bringing awareness on Mongolian holidays. So yeah.
Thank you both. I just want you to know, as Mary Sue mentioned in the chat, the president of USAI, we are all so grateful for your participation in MUNCEP and this webinar today. And thank you so much for continuing to stay involved with USAI. But yeah, Isaac, again, if you have any other questions, if anyone else does.
I have no other questions. I just want to extend a heartfelt thanks to the participants today, Temujin and Dan, especially. Thank you for being here to share your experience with MUNCEP. It's a super cool program, and I hope it continues for a long time. And again, if anybody didn't get it, there's more information on MUNCEP at usasiainstitute.org, and information on ACMS and the ACS programs we offer here in Ulaanbaatar at mongoliacenter.org. And I guess with that, we'll wrap up. Any closing thoughts from anybody? Alrighty then. Well, thanks again for participating, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.